If you're a longtime friend of the channel, you may remember Miss Betty White, my very first car, my 7th gen Honda Accord V6. That was the car that really began my love for the J-Series, and since I sold it, I desperately had the desire to get back into one. And to solve my J-Series dilemma, instead of just buying another Honda Accord V6, I did something almost the same. I bought an Acura. So yes, this pretty little number sitting right next to me is my new to me 2003 Acura 3.2 CL in anthracite metallic. My first gray car. This also happens to be my very first Acura, so even though this isn't the fiery Type S model that we all dream about, it still has the J-Series V6, one of the best, one of the greatest V6 engines on the face of this earth. Of course, this one is a more old man spec because it's automatic, it's gray, but it does have the beautiful black leather interior, and as it's sitting right next to me, it has 115,000 miles on it. That makes this thing, out of the almost 20 cars I've had in my lifetime already, this is one of the lowest mileage cars I've owned. The lowest is about 96,000 miles with my old Volvo S60. For my DC nerds out there, this car is also a Chevy Chase Acura original. If you don't know what that is, that just means that this car came from the same dealership and it was serviced at the same dealership since 2003. It's a one-owner car, so I'm your next one-owner car guy here.
Hello everyone, one-owner car guy here.
Does anyone remember him from old YouTube? He was like an OG. Back when it was new in 03, this thing had an MSRP of $28,200. If you wanted the Type S, that one started at about $30,000. A very good deal. And navigation was only about a $2,000 or $3,000 option on top of that. Otherwise, this is what you get. This, my friends, marks the second generation of the Acura CL, also known as the UA4. The original first-gen CL is known as the UA1. Those were introduced in the late 90s and went all the way to the 99 model year. For the 2000 model year, a CL did not exist at all. Of course, these are based on the Honda Accord and Acura TL, so no matter what people will tell you, even though this has a 3.2-liter V6, it is not derived from the NSX. The UA4 CL was sold from the 2001 model year to 2003, so this one is actually the last year. And Acura also updated the CL for the last year. You got different headlights with these dark housings. Of course, they're HID. We also get different taillights in the back, which look more modern and more fresh. We were given more body color trim pieces instead of chrome, like around the grille, and also the door handles. Something I wish this car had, though, and only 01 and 02 CLs can get, are fog lights. Acura called them driving lights because they were apparently pretty dim, but I just like the look. 03 is the only year to get no fog lights. People actually like this fog light delete. All CLs, the first and second gen, were both built in Honda's East Liberty plant in Ohio, and these were actually the first American-built Acuras. For those that didn't know, the Acura CL was the successor for Acura's Legend Coupe, and it still shows some of the design language from the original Legend Coupe, but the rounded front and rear end were pretty controversial back then. It took about 2 weeks for the front of this car to grow on me because I liked the boxy front end of the old Legend. But now to me, this contemporary luxury coupe has a beautiful design. This was also the time I would say Acura really started to fumble in the late 90s and the 2000s, because they went from the names like Legend, Vigor, Integra to 3.5 RL, 3.2 TL, 3.2 CL. Confusing, and that's when I think sales started to decline for this car. Now, besides the price, I wouldn't just go buy a car because it's cheap. There are cheap cars that I like, and this just happened to be one of them. I was looking for something more fun and smaller, something that would be a supplement to my XC90, but I didn't want to have too much of a compromise in terms of space, like getting a Miata. Those things have no practicality to them at all. This one still has a pretty big back seat, even though it's a two-door car because of its Acura TL and Honda Accord roots, but also because of that, you have a fabulous fabulous V6 engine. So this, my friends, is the J32A1, a 3.2 liter single overhead cam V6. Of course it's from Honda, using their J series lines of engines. They use a version of this engine today in the new Pilot, Odyssey, Ridgeline, and Passport, and also the MDX. The J series, besides the 2GR from Toyota, is one of the best V6s to date on this planet. Unfortunately, this one doesn't have the fiery 260 horsepower from the CL Type S, but the A1 is still a good engine, and it still has VTEC, so you can still listen to those wonderful noises. In this application, because the cams, exhaust, and a few of the other innards of the engine are different from the Type S, this makes 225 horsepower and 216 pound-feet of torque. If you do want more power, and I'm sorry to say this to my friends at OG, if I keep this car long enough, I will put the J35A3 from the Acura MDX in this. You get more torque, a slightly beefier engine, and of course some more horsepower as well at 240. That engine is pretty much a direct bolt-on because you have to use that engine in this because it uses a mechanical throttle. All J-series motors use a timing belt instead of a timing chain. People like to complain about the timing belt, but if you're on top of it every 7 years or 80 to 100,000 miles, you won't have trouble. The people that complain about timing belts have either never had it actually break on them, or I'm sure they've just let the thing go to shit and then blow the engine up. So you just have to do your due diligence. This thing will easily get to 400,000 miles. A part of this car that will not make it to 400,000 miles, maybe if not even 40,000 miles, unless if you're like the Holy Ghost, is the transmission. In these Acuras and Hondas of this era with this V6 and even the 4-cylinder, the early 4 speeds in the 90s and the early 5 speeds of the late 90s and the early 2000s, absolute garbage. Some reports have had these things blow up at under 40,000 miles, brand new. And then Acura warranted these transmission jobs, replaced them, and then they would still go bad. Not only in the CLs, but the TLs, the V6 Accords, the MDX, the Honda Odyssey, even some of the early Honda Pilots as well. This was a catastrophic issue that really hurt Honda's reputation back in the day. One of the most common symptoms that you'll see with a failing 5-speed automatic from Honda is pretty much the lack of third gear. There's clutch packs that help the transmission between each gear to shift, and those third gear clutch packs are known to go bad and then lodge all kinds of debris to clog up all the lines, and then it pretty much just dries itself out. Because of all this, from the normal 36,000 mile warranty, Honda and Acura bumped the warranty up to 100,000 miles or 7 years, and then they'd replace your transmission. The problem still persisted, so they bumped the warranty up to 107,000 miles and 10 years. After your transmission is already messed up from the third gear shavings all over the place, because of the oil starvation issue, it would overheat the rest of the transmission, overheat one of the gears, and cause the gear to explode inside of the transmission and lock up the transmission. Some stories I've seen on AcuraZine and some of the other forums online, people would be doing 70 miles an hour and then the transmission would just lock up. Imagine that. Now you might be thinking I should be having a panic attack after telling all of you this, and maybe you just bought one of these and you're panicking as well. But one solution to not have to deal with all this is either just not buying one of these at all, or buying a manual one, or if you'd like to, you can upgrade the transmission with the 5-speed automatic from the Honda Accord that I used to have. That's actually what this car has. It has the BAYA transmission from the 06 to 07. Only those two, 06 to 07 Honda Accord V6 sedan. Internally, it's just built better than the older 5-speed transmission, and unlike that old 5-speed, which was just the old Honda 4-speed with 1 gear added onto it, this was a completely new design. So much more reliable, less problems. I dogged the shit out of my Accord through high school, and it never gave me any issue. I don't expect the exact same performance, because of course it's a different car, but if all else fails, if I still have this car, again, sorry guys at work, I want to put a manual transmission in this car as well. But for now, I've been thoroughly enjoying it because it has a good transmission in it. I of course had to put a cold air intake. It's just an eBay intake. I just wanted to hear the noises. Don't complain to me. I almost forgot, because this is a Honda, MPGs are still pretty good as well. Even with my heavy foot. This thing is rated at 20 in the city, 29 on the highway, and a combined rating of 24. And this thing can run on regular gas, but Acura recommends putting 93 in it. And because it's my car, I put 93 in it. In the current shape that you see this in, it doesn't really need anything. The transmission has already been sorted. The only things it actually does need are brakes and an oil change. The rotors and pads are warped in the front. I have a rear caliper that's sticking, but I have all those parts already, and an oil change is something very easy to do. As you can see, for the most part, this is a pretty clean example of the 2nd generation CL. Usually these things are pretty clapped. It's annoying. I saw a spitting image of this car driven by an old lady the other day, and I thought it was my car. The main issue that I have with this, that I absolutely hate, before I had this car, it was actually hit back here while it was parked. That's at least what I'm assuming. And annoyingly, on the Carfax, nothing shows. No damage reported. But the paint on this side, on the bumper, and also the rear quarter, and also the driver's door, just do not match. There's also orange peel. It looks like a DIY Bern on Cars paint job, to be completely honest. And if you look at the rest of the paint, it's not faded, it's good. It just has to be polished, but I've washed the car and I put a coat of ceramic wax on it. But I just hate how the driver's side, you can see the fender and the door do not match. This has 4 new Michelins on it, and it's on these 16-inch alloy wheels that really remind me of the Honda Accord. I definitely will switch those out with a more youthful setup. I like that it has the sunroof on it. That works well. This one also has a complete fishbowl, so my desires to have this thing tinted are quite strong. There's really not too much damage on it. The only thing right here, you know, old people get scratched up. That's not too bad. Other than that, the front of the car is good. Just a little scuff from the front plate bracket, but thankfully no holes that actually show. Thanks Honda for doing that. The passenger side is really the good looking side of this car. If I step back and do this, look at that. It actually looks quite nice. So eventually, again, if I keep this car long enough, I'd like to get the body on the driver's side sorted. I almost forgot to mention, you can see the lack of fog lights on this model. I really want the fog lights, just I like the look of them. Something that I didn't notice until maybe 2 days after I got this car though, is that this rear wheel here is from the TL of this era. I don't know why, but it has a TL wheel on it. That's another reason I want to switch out these old people looking wheels. I like that this one has the spoiler on it, thankfully. You can also see the updated tail lights, but thankfully, for the most part, there's no real damage on the car. I guess I'll also show you the interior. It's quite nice in here, the black leather. Sorry it is a bit of a mess, but the black leather, it's in great shape for this condition. And you know, it's not like it was a pristine garage kept example, but usually the Acuras of this era have very dry, cracked leather. This one is in quite good shape, thankfully, so I'll hit it with some Leatherique to keep the nice factory finish. But I quite like the interior. If you look at pictures of this and this 6th gen Accord, it's pretty similar but also different, but that's just what you would expect from Honda at the time. I don't know if you can see, but the defroster, the plastic for the defroster, it likes to pop up, so I have to secure that. Occasionally it will rattle, which annoys me. I also see old cars do this. From the sun, it warps the material here. Same thing on the driver's side, so I'll definitely be more climate conscious for this car. But other than that, it's a nice car. The doors close with a solid thunk. Everything feels nice. The hood shuts solid. The trunk shuts solid. It's a solid ride. Now, I know I said I wanted a smaller car, and it is smaller than my SUV, but for a coupe, this is still pretty big. It's larger than the Accord coupe at this time, sitting at 192 inches long. I appreciate the length though. This doesn't feel like a huge car to drive, nice and nimble because it has its double wishbone front suspension. Again, the base CLs have these 16-inch alloy wheels, while the Type S's have 17s. But I really do appreciate the length of this car because I can have my friends in the back seat, and if I want to take a trip with this car, I still can because I have a big trunk. It has already made this car very useful and appealing to me, knowing that I can use it all the time. I'm not going to drive this in a foot of snow, of course, or take it to Green Ridge to go camping, but if I wanted to, I guess I could. This does, again, have a cavernous trunk. 13.6 cubic feet of volume. I almost got ahead of myself again. You can only open the trunk of the CL with the key fob here or the button inside the car on the driver's door. You can fit more than just shoes in the trunk of this car. I appreciate that Acura put hooks inside of here that I can actually mount my backpack to, so things don't really slide around. And a modification that the previous owner did, he used a bungee cord here so you don't have to touch the trunk and get it dirty. Isn't that sweet? We now have the fabulous pleasure of driving my new Acura CL. First of all, I'll show you the key fob, the typical Honda Acura key. This is the fob for it. We have the lock, unlock, trunk release, and panic button. And if you want to, you can do a remote starter that uses this same key fob. It just uses the lock button, but this is the Acura key. The blade key, really nostalgic. I like it, and it chirps when you lock it, unlike Hondas that honk. But because we don't have any push button start or smart key nonsense inside this car, all you need is the blade. Put your foot on the brake. You don't even need to do that, and we can start this thing to go. So nice. I love the J. But welcome to the driving experience. The first driving experience with me and this car. I've been driving this car for a few weeks. I drove it with a bad transmission, and I drove it with a good transmission as well. So thankfully we have the good transmission in this car today. For being a larger coupe, it doesn't have like a huge cumbersome feeling to it, which I appreciate. Has good throttle response. I did adjust the throttle cable. I made it a little bit more sensitive, just because it's something you can do with manual throttle. Of course, you're not supposed to get rid of all the slack, but I removed some of it. We can hear some of the wonderful noises. Hopefully we can get to some roads that are less bothersome with NPCs, but vámonos. Unfortunately, we have slow bots in front. Oh, let me close this. This guy almost like hit the person head on, but it's good. The powertrain is smooth. The J puts its power down well, and the 5-speed auto is tuned pretty well. Thankfully, I haven't really noticed any scary things. I mean, you would hope not after a newer transmission in it. The first thing that I noticed, honestly, was how smooth the ride is. I would expect something to drive nice like this, because the Accords drive pretty nice, but this one has an even more substantial feeling than the Accord coupe. and my 7th gen Accord. This of course is based on the 6th gen Accord and the old 2nd gen Acura TL. The steering has a perfect amount of response and weight to it. It's light, but it still is very communicative, just like how I like all these older cars. Now we can get on the power here. I love it. It's really good. That J32, I was gonna say J35, but it's great. It's not like it's the fastest thing in the world, of course, because this one isn't even the Type S. But it really puts a smile on my face. We can do a U-turn and then hear it again. This thing, it's nice compared to my big XC90. This has a nice tight turning circle, so we can get in front of all the bots here. It's so good. You can hear VTEC crack. It's the intake. Normally the engine is actually too quiet, and I'm doing a considerable amount of speed, and wind noise isn't too bad. Tire noise is actually pretty un-Honda-like. It's not as bad as you would think. I'm trying to think of some better roads. These people have a turn light. I'm doing some nonsense. These people have a turn light, so we can go this way. This is how I drove in high school with my Accord. It's just fun. I love listening to the sound. One of these days, when I have the brakes and everything, we'll take it to some proper back roads. And I know it's an automatic, but it does have the sequential gear mode, and I have been learning to properly use it because it doesn't rev match when you downshift, which is annoying. So it'll go like you're pulling a dog on a leash, but I've learned to rev match with this automatic, and it's been quite good. We'll see how it is here. I love that noise. I love when VTEC kicks in. It comes in at about 4,500 RPM. You can see it handles well, but because it's on these chunky tires, it certainly is softer, and the suspension is tuned for more comfort as well. It's a really fantastic highway cruiser. I'd take this thing across the country with no hesitation. It's smooth. The steering at higher speeds has the steering doesn't change. It doesn't appear to me like it adapts depending on how you're driving, but at all speeds the steering just has a nice sense of control, and the car has a decent amount of grip. I haven't really pushed it with these tires and how it is right now, because you can feel them like, ooh, but it handles really well with the double wishbone suspension. It takes corners tighter than you expect it to. It takes high-speed turns with authority. Of course, you will feel the front start to push. Maybe, I don't know if we'll encounter any roads like that today, but, you know, it's even nice to drive slowly. I understand why old people just drive them 20 miles an hour, but at higher speeds, it's very competent. At high speeds, it's also pretty impressively smooth as well. Not too much wind noise. The steering doesn't feel like it's loose. The car doesn't feel like it's floating. So it's actually very composed. Feels pretty luxurious, but of course, I don't think I'm driving an E-Class or anything like that, or a CLK. I know what I'm driving. I'm driving an Accord, but it's nicer at least. So again, this thing has 115,000 miles on it. Thankfully, I did look at the service records, and I received a considerable amount of service records for this car. The timing belt has been done, and a lot of major services have been done. So I have some time, but definitely before I hit 200,000 miles, if I have it that long, I'll do the timing belt again. You can see the road is kind of jittery right here. You know, I'm on a more country type road, and it still takes the bumps quite well. I, of course, will expect it to ride a little bit firmer with the 18-inch wheels when I put those on. So I know it won't it won't ride as soft, but it's a compromise I'm willing to make, because around corners, I like to push the car around corners. It just feels a little bit soft for that. But it really drives well. It really does. It takes corners. It just sweeps through them like nothing. Minimal body roll, even though this is a, you know, softer car. Of course, when you're really pushing the bitch, you'll feel some body roll, but it's so nice. And it feels nicer than my 7th gen Accord. That's kind of also why I was like, yeah, I'll buy it. It was 10 minutes from my house, one of the closest acquisitions I got besides my Tacoma. So I was like, why not? The car is right here. The car found me pretty much, so I might as well. Round the bends here, you can see, it handles beautifully. The double wishbone suspension is good. This car doesn't even have much like a floaty feeling on, you know, floaty, like rolling hills. It's very composed. It's good. It's very, I was just watching for this guy, but it's just very grown up. We can do a... Yeah, certainly before we take this on some bigger back roads and some, you know, windier roads, I want to change the brakes on this, so I'm probably going to do that next week. I didn't go all out yet. I just got normal rotors and pads for all 4 corners, but eventually, because it's a fairly easy swap, I will, if I keep this again, I think I will keep it for a little bit at least. I will do the Acura RL calipers, because that's a good upgrade. Those go from 2-piston calipers on this one to 4-piston. So definitely would get that better response. We can hear VTEC crack slowly soon. Almost. Now. It's so good. The transmission is good too. You can see the Accord transmission holds up to the abuse that I put it through, but the original transmission in this car burnt out within a week. It was crazy. Within a week, the transmission burnt out. I also love, because this car is a Honda, I've been driving it like this, not every day. Of course, most of the time I'm more of a civilized driver, but I've been putting my foot down and it's not drinking gas. It's nice. It's not something I complain about with the Volvo, because it's miles per gallon for me, but it's a big benefit that the car is cheaper to put gas in than my XC90, and also it consumes less gas than the XC90. And I drive both my cars pretty hard. Hopefully I have no one coming so we can do a jaunt the other way. The car, of course, if you're trying to drive more spiritedly, I would certainly recommend using the manual mode in this, just because you have better control of the power band. This car likes to go in its higher gears more than not. So if you really want it to kick down normally, like when I'm like, wah, that's like almost the bottom of the pedal. That's how it is. The car is more tuned for softer driving. I really can't wait until it's manual though, because the sound of the J series with a manual transmission is such a heavenly sound. It really is. freaking love the sound, man. It's great. And it handles well. It's a pretty confidence-inspiring car, I do have to say. Of course, especially if you put good wheels on it. Well, good wheels and tires. I'll pop it in sport. I'll show you, maybe if you can see how I have to rev match. You know, you just, right at the same time that I'm shifting down. Fabulous. You can see though the rotors are pulsing, so I can't do this too much. That's the last of the aggressive driving that I'll be doing. But I say that right now, at least. You can see, like, of course, it's not fast compared to all these other cars, but I don't need that. I would like this to be a little bit more powerful, and that's why I put the 3.5 in it. And then if I wanted to, I could build the 3.5, but then it requires some more wizardry. Put the 3.7 from the MDX in here. J-swap, one of my favorite swaps in the world. You'll definitely see, maybe if I own an S2000, if the engine is bad, if I buy an S2000 with the engine bad, I'd put a J series in it. Other than that, I don't need to mess with that 4-cylinder. Of course, because this is an Acura, this is very comfortable when you're driving it like an NPC. The seats, I've really been happy with them. Extremely supportive. Not once I've thought, man, I wish I had the Type S seat. I don't even know if they're really different because these seats have a hell of a lot of support already. I'm also really happy I found one with the black interior. If this had a tan interior, if this was I already don't really like gray cars, but if this was a gold on gold one, I wouldn't have bought it. But because it has such a clean black interior, and I can make do with the gray, it's actually a pretty appealing car, especially once I put the different wheels on it. I could really talk about this car all day, but I won't do that because I don't want this video to be an hour long. But yeah, it's good. I knew it would be. Honestly, I got into this car thinking I was gonna sell it because I didn't think it was something that I'd like as much as I do, but it really drives nice. I thought it would be floatier than it is. It's not really floaty at all. It's very composed, and I'm not really trying to go all out with this car, but I would, like all my other cars, like to do something and make it a Bern car and a more OEM plus. The first thing I want to do is get rid of these 16-inch wheels. Unfortunately, they do have brand new Michelins on them, 2023 date code, but in the meantime, I've been looking for wheels from the 8th gen Honda Accord Coupe. The big 18-inch multi-spoke wheels. I'm a sucker for multi-spoke wheels. This thing doesn't really need anything suspension-wise, which is good. It saves me money on that account. Everything underneath looked pretty good, but the only thing I do here around this corner is maybe a sway bar link that's gone bad, so little things. In my head, this is my grand touring car, so I'll plan to take this on many trips, and I'll bring you guys along as well. I, of course, will do LEDs. I've replaced a few LEDs already. I did the reverse lights the other day, but LED bulbs are pretty expensive. So if anyone, LastFit or Oxido, any of you friends of mine are watching this, I have a new car that needs LED bulbs. And that, my friends, was a tour of my new to me 2003 Acura CL, of course 3.2 CL. I still haven't figured out a name yet, so maybe in the next update video you'll see that, but expect plenty of videos to come with this car, many more J-Series sounds. I'm very excited about that. I know this thing isn't extravagant and expensive and fast like a lot of the other, my other YouTube friends out there. I don't want to throw shade, but it's my car, my new car. I'm excited about it. You don't have to be, but I certainly will be. I hope you all are having a good Thanksgiving if you're watching it on Thanksgiving. Again, thanks to Adams for sponsoring this video. I won't ramble too much though, because there's quite the gust of wind that's coming. But again, thank you for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. And thanks for hanging out today. I'll see you guys next time. Bye, peeps.